So you're in Switzerland.
What's that famous restaurant in Zurich called that I always forget the name of?
Obsessed with it, and you never remember the restaurant.
Yeah, I just ate there last night. Kronenha. You ever eaten there?
I've never been to Zurich in my life.
So great to eat just simple Swiss food.
Yeah, I'm not a Swiss food fan. This is one area Scott Besson and I agree, not into Swiss food. But maybe I haven't had the right Swiss food. Too much fondue. Should we get started?
Let's go.
Welcome to People vs. Algorithms. We're going to detect patterns in media technology and culture. Alex is apparently missing. I mean, that might have gotten lost in the WhatsApp, honestly, because I was expecting him to be here. But fresh off the slopes, Troy Young, thank you for taking a break from it's a prairie ski time right now, right?
Yeah, we're going for fondue tonight.
Oh, it's fantastic. You're in Switzerland. I've never skied in Europe. I'm not a ski guy, part of my man of the people shtick. I've never skied in Europe, but I've heard it's much superior to American mountains. And I might add, because this will be part of this episode about the best and worst of times, the American ski industry is in a bit of a pickle. It's been taken over by private equity. They're squeezing it for profits. The cost of a lift ticket is through the roof. It's cheaper. And I assume that's why you're in Switzerland. It's cheaper just to go to Switzerland.
You know, stuff isn't cheap here. Like, food is really expensive. But lift
it's
tickets,
like one of the most expensive places in the world.
Lift tickets are much cheaper.
Right.
The ski technology is superior. So, they have these sort of elevator-like gondolas where you press a button to pick your, where you're going. And, like those elevators where you select the floor and it directs you to the appropriate elevator. It's kind of like that.
Oh, they're programmatic.
Yeah. And so they send you, if you want to go to like station 4 on the main hill, you press 4 and you wait in that line and it zips you up there. And the chairlifts are really nice. There's a lot more sort of casual intermediate terrain. So it's a pleasant place to ski. And the eating on the hill is really good. For lunch today, we went to this hut that had, like ribs and sausage and veal shank and
ribs
and big fat slices of bacon with a side of polenta and gorgonzola cheese melted into it, which was delicious.
Sounds light.
Yeah, it was delicious. And at that in a beer, and I was ready to head back home to meet you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. I was actually supposed to go to a mountain in Switzerland in a couple of weeks, but I'm not going to go.
You should. It's lovely.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would like to. It's the one, are you closer to Italy? I don't know. That's where we're going to go.
No, I'm closer. I mean, I'm an hour and a half from Zurich. That's
okay,
probably the most, there's one mountain before that's more conveniently located where you could just zip up in your ski clothes from Zurich on a train, basically get off the train at a lift and ski. This is an hour and a half. Not bad at all.
I think my favorite places in Europe, because there's so many diversity, obviously, of nationalities, and you can get so many places quickly where they're speaking totally different languages, is where cultures butt up against one another. So I'm very into recently the part of Italy that butts up against the sort of greater Germanic world, because it's an interesting mix. And there's some of that, like in where France and Italy meet. I think Italy should basically, when Italy's in the mix, I'm interested. All right, let's talk about best and worst of times. Before we do, I should mention, because we didn't talk post-mixer, the mixer went great. Thank you for asking, Troy, in London. Met a few PVA super fans at the event, and that was fun. I want to give...
What do you ever talk to those folks about what they like about our conversations?
Oh, well, it's the banter, it's the insights. They're media people. They can't get enough of this. They're in too deep.
I did get a text from a private equity guy who absolutely despises Alex.
Of course he does. Of course he does.
And he said, I was wondering if that's why I listen.
Yeah,
and I said, I don't love Kara Swisher, and I tune into Pivot.
Everyone's got a role to play. Simon Regan Edwards, I want to give him a particular shout out. He's been a loyalist for a couple of years now. He's a product director at Daily Mail. He came and was was singing. He didn't give any hate to Alex or AB or you or me. I mean, that would be weird. Look, there's a movement afoot for a PVA mixer. I'm just going to say that. It's just what I'm hearing on the streets.
Well, if you were to believe Joe Weisenthal, do you know Joe from
Odd Lots? Great podcast. He and Tracy Alloway are a great duo.
He's got this new book out on the rise of oral culture and what it's doing to the way we communicate, think, what it's doing to politics, all of that, and how it mimics an ancient time of before writing and the kind of analytical processes that connected with, solitary thinking and writing, an analytical approach to how we kind of understand the world. And he suggests that we're moving into a period that's more like kind of the ancient oral culture, which I guess we're part of, Brent.
We are part of the ancient oral culture. And I'm kind of dragged into this because I'm a writer by instinct, by nature, maybe by DNA. I listened to Joe discuss this with Derek Thompson, who's back from maternity leave. He sort of disappeared for a while. I was a little bit concerned. It turned out just to be paternity leave. I feel like you got to announce that. And also as a podcaster, come on, you're in the slopes and you're taking an hour off to do a podcast. Derek, do a podcast every now and again. I'm just saying. Anyway, he had a really good conversation with Joe on this orality thesis. These are all forks on the same thing, I feel like. And we've talked about it a lot. A lot of it is the casualization of media in the information space. If you look at how writing is being done, and I do this purposefully, I always felt when I was writing for magazines or even websites, and particularly in the news context, you have to write in a particular format, and it's not natural. And I personally like conversational writing styles better. I think I'm best at it. That's why I always was attracted to blogging. And I think blogging was an important part of this shift that Joe was talking about, because he was an early blogger, and blogging was this sort of conversational, it was orality meets textuality, if you will. Mm-hmm. And I think we're seeing this everywhere. Short form video clips are obviously not just ascendant, but dominant, and arguably they're melting our brains. But I think everything is moving in this direction, and it will move more in this direction as AI becomes. I think audio is going to be a major feature of however we interact with information in the AI era.
How do you think about what it does to how we communicate? They talk about communication being optimized for memorability, like rhythm and rhyme, repetition, epithets. So it travels in kind of packets. So you get this memification of communication. And then stuff like abstract reasoning and nuance and analytical thinking, those are sort of products of writing, not speech. So they like talking about how Trump has these Homeric epithets that apparently there's a dictionary of, like, Sleepy Joe and Jeb Bush, low energy Jeb. Yeah.
No, he's pretty good at the nickname stuff. He did really get one for Kamala.
Trump doesn't read.
Crooked Hillary was a good one.
Yeah.
Name is on the tin. No, I think Trump is obviously a great example of orality. And a lot of this is, to me, it's forks on the same thing. Like, compare that to the Chris Hayes book, right? Our attention spans have been evaporated. And Chris's book basically made the argument that you need to sit in your chamber. And that's what writing is about. It's about sitting in your chamber and doing the work. I just wrote for about 3 hours now. It's painful.
Yeah. What are you writing?
It stinks. I don't know why when people say, like, they're like, oh, well, you would do it.
But seriously, what are you working on?
Even if it wasn't your job, you would do it. I'm like, no, like I sitting down and writing for 3 hours and thinking about, like, how you want to communicate something is weirdly difficult now. I mean, I used to do this like all day almost. What am I writing about? I wrote a newsletter about what's working in the media business. That's why it was so hard. You know what I mean? Writing is difficult, and talking is less difficult. And I think part of look, I'm not fighting it. I don't hate the player, I hate the game. But the reality is, a lot of oral communication is performative. I mean, that's why I always wanted people to write memos or to write things down in email rather than present. There's nothing worse than being presented to in a corporate context. I'm glad I left that behind because it's always hand waving. Salespeople and sales adjacent people love it because it's a performance. You can use, gestures and gesticulations. You can use charts and you do all these things, and it can cover up for muddy thinking. And I am always going to be a word sell because words expose that. And once you put down your thoughts on paper, all the flaws are pretty obvious. I assume that's what Jeff Bezos is.
You're a word maxer.
I love word maxing, but I'll do the orality. Why not? Sure.
But Brian, the thread in our text chain.
I think Alex is speaking to Whisper in that text chain. By the way.
Yeah, I mean, Alex thinks that he was kind of right about everything always, and that we're just beginning to understand that. So maybe he was. Good for you, Alex. But the thought was that we're living through this kind of paradox where every chart says things are great, but somehow things don't feel great. And, because the charts maybe are measuring the wrong things, but they say that, growth is good and unemployment is low and, the economy is strong. And you really feel this when you come to Europe. You feel, I do. I'm literally just going to wear Canadian flag T-shirts all the time now.
Are you going to be one of those guys with the flag on your backpack as you Euro-rail around? Are you Euro-railing? That's next for you, Troy. This summer you should Euro-rail.
Yeah, but what seems to be missing is things that make life feel good, like dignity and agency and community and, the sense that effort connects to reward. So I don't know. These are strange times. We're on the precipice of, the most important technological revolution of ever, right? And everything's supposed to be great, but it doesn't feel great, at least to me, Brian. So am I wrong? Is it me? Is it just me? Is it a life stage thing?
It's not.
What's going on? Explain it to me, Brian.
It's not you. Look at B2B SaaS. There's a lot of people under pressure. A couple of thoughts on that. One is there's always a gap between economists and real people. That's why they call it the dismal science. And that's why economists are generally unpopular as a profession because they're grinding a lot of data. And they say that the definition of a recession to an economist is what, three quarters of declining growth, but to a regular person, it's when they lose their job, right? The economy is growing. Employment is growing. The stock market is still doing well. Pam Bondi told us all that when she was asked why any of Epstein's listed co-conspirators were not being investigated. We've got Ozempic. You have Zins. The AI maxers are promising on many podcasts that we're going to have 20% GDP growth, infinite leisure time to see you on the slopes, and maybe along the way we cure cancer. And at the same time, a lot of stuff just feels off.
And then God help you if you read the Andrew Yang memo that basically all white collar employment is coming to an end.
Okay, so let's get into that because Andrew Yang dropped this memo, and I saw it on X because I'm still on X. What I find on this orality point, and then I'm going to talk about the specifics of the Yang thing, is I think that X is basically choosing one thing to be the main character long form text of the week. It was something as big that appeared on, and I think everyone's feed, right? So the algorithm is going to crown one thing, and this is kind of a competition to see who gets to be the thing. What is this, the main thing? I think Andrew Yang was trying to be the main thing with that post, but he lost out to other doom maxers. Ray Dalio is on a different level when it comes to doom maxing. This guy is an original doom maxer because Andrew Yang is you're not going to have a job. like the clock is ticking. Forget it. You're going to be foraging in Prospect Park. But Ray Dalio is going up to geopolitical level, and he's like, get into the nuclear shelter because conflict is coming. So you gotta know in these, extremes are always, going to win in the information space. And so Andrew Yang just didn't go far enough, but he did predict that there is a lot of dislocation coming. I get a little tired of these things. I don't know if you feel the same way. He basically said this automation wave will kick millions of white collar workers to the curb in the next 12 to 18 months. Very evocative. As one company starts to streamline, all their competitors will follow suit. It will become a competition because the stock market will reward you if you cut headcount and punish you if you don't. As one investor put it, quote, sell anything that consists of people sitting at a desk looking at a computer. And meanwhile, I'm saying that we all got to like sit in our chamber. Andrew is taking the other side of that bet.
Yeah.
Are you buying it?
I'm concerned for sure. And this is uncharacteristic of me to say, but I believe more strongly than ever that we need some kind of coordinated response to the AI threat. And I think that there's much work to be done by the collective, by government, by international organizations to really start to think about how we prepare. I think if you take a historical lens on massive technological changes, you will see that they, whether it was, as far back as the printing press or, the 20s and to the 30s, where the Gilded Age, the Industrial Revolution, usually these great changes, shifts in technology were followed by great, societal despair that were resolved over long time periods, usually by some type of government intervention. And
sometimes with revolutions and spasms of violence.
Yeah, lots of violence. So, when I think about it, haven't spent enough time, but I think that we're going to have to look at a kind of everything from like, what are the new human rights against sort of the rights of AI? I think we're going to have to look at tax policy really carefully. When you set up, OpenClaw on a computer and spend, $10,000 a month having it become a replacement employee and you're buying tokens instead of feeding a human being, you've essentially hired someone and they're doing a job, but they're not a taxable entity. They're effectively getting paid and they're earning revenue. And so I think we're going to have to look at new ways to think about tax, either, at the LLM level, at like different ways of thinking about tax against big tech companies or the model owners, or, where there is significant human displacement on account of technology. I mean, there's going to have to be new ways of creating revenue. We're going to have to look at the safety net and look at benefits and minimum income, which is Andrew's thing. What kinds of training programs we should be advocating for and or subsidizing. I really think that it's important that we have, I don't know if it's like how we do it as part of government, but a kind of future work task force that looks at like implications for retraining in education and subsidies and gets a kind of national dialogue going on what we're going to do when technology displaces a lot of work, and has that discussion broadly enough to look at, dignity and agency. I think that we're going to have to look at like content provenance and look at like metadata systems for content and watermarking when we can't tell the difference between what's fake and what's real. I think we're going to have, new kind of liability frameworks that says if AI bot, agent, whatever does crazy shit, who's accountable for it? And how do we track that? One would hope that we could work with other countries on stuff like this. So there would be some type of international coordination, that we're going to have to really look at shit like agentic processes and how there's a human in a loop and where there's a kill switch. So I think that, like, there's a lot to do, man. And to just kind of wave our hands and say everything's fine, which is kind of what I would probably usually do when it comes to, government interference in, tech policy and industry. I think here it's, the implications for this technology are so profound that we gotta get ready.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? Does that
That's
sound crazy?
lot.
Are you? That's a lot.
I'll just be honest. That's a lot.
Well,
how do I unpack
from the list, man?
I'll pick a few things. I think, I'm a narrative guy, right? So outside of the specifics, I think it's really difficult because there's no leaders right now who can have these conversations, right? The political class, the power broker class as a whole has been completely discredited by the Epstein files, whether they're in it or not, honestly, because it confirms a lot
This
of
can't be about
feelings.
whether the existing leaders are capable of doing it.
Okay, well, I don't know who is going to lead this conversation. How much was AI discussed in the last presidential campaign? What was Kamala Harris's platform on all of these topics that you just unspooled versus Donald Trump? I don't remember that being a discussion. So our political leaders don't want to have these discussions. Our business leaders are either self-interested or they're just corrupt, right? And I think that is the part of the when you talk about why are people, so unhappy, I think they're really unhappy deep down with how unprincipled people are in these leadership positions. It confirms exactly their suspicions. And so I think that is going to make it very difficult to address these real world issues because the political class in particular, they want to debate over who's in the boys and the girls room, who plays field hockey and whatnot to distract from these issues because they're complicated in that they come back to a lot of this inequality issue because I think a lot of the trepidation when it comes to AI, at the root of it is around displacement and about an oligarchic elite that is shoving us down this path that a lot of people don't want to go down. I mean, I'm not saying Time magazine is the arbiter of like the current mood, right? But they have like, the AI objectionists like on their cover, on the recent cover. And this is a lane that we're seeing in politics. This is where populism is going to go. Nobody likes data centers when they're built around them. Okay. Nobody likes the fact that their kids don't know what to study because they don't know what kind of career is going to be waiting for them. So I understand why people are unhappy. Makes sense.
What do you think we should do though, Brian? I get that people are seeing that the Epstein files have confirmed maybe the suspicions of common people that think that the game is rigged and that people, the elites, are of low morals. But like, what would you do? What do you think we should be doing?
Well, I mean, I think it starts with having a sort of political lustration. Like, I think we need a wholesale change of leadership. Chuck Schumer was on my plane last night. He was doddering down the aisle saying like hello to people. I didn't give him kudos. Hello, Senator. I wanted to tell him like, you need to do a better job on the Epstein files and then you got to retire. We have to get rid of our oligarchic, this gerontocracy that we have politically, right? And I think it starts with leadership change. And until there's a leadership change, I don't think that these issues are going to be addressed. I think, unfortunately, there have been different people that have risen and the Democrats do not yet have a standard bearer. I don't know of anyone right now who I look at as like a really good leader in this area. I think Dario Omadai might be. I've been really intrigued by him. I've been listening to like 4 hours of podcasts with him. He does a lot of podcasting now too. And he has a really interesting, nuanced view of where AI is going. And it strikes me as way saner than the stuff I hear from Elon Musk with his nudifying apps and Sam Altman, who's just presents as a completely untrustworthy character. I don't really want this guy making decisions for society. But Dario Omadai, I think, is actually an interesting leader.
I agree with that, but like it's pretty urgent because I worry that when people of my children's generation read stuff like Andrew's stuff and much of the dialogue right now, that there's a risk that they just go into this kind of nihilistic spiral. It's like, what's the point? What's the point in putting, energy in trying to kind of play the age-old game of work hard and build a good life for yourself, because it feels like that the connection between cause and effect is broken.
Well, then fix the incentives, right? Like, I mean, if young people in a society have opted out of the idea that they can live as well or better than their parents, then you're in trouble. And you don't want a lot of idle, particularly young men, like, around. But you don't want that at all. Like, make the jobs. You do not. Any society with large numbers of unemployed young men is not a good situation. So I would say address that issue immediately. But you look at, like, the popularity of prediction markets, right? That is, I think just a regular person knows this is just unregulated gambling. I mean, too bad Alex is not here with the unregulated hotel chain that they had at Airbnb. I mean, people have seen these scams for long enough that they know exactly what is happening. Okay. And you see that, and you see where digital culture itself is going, particularly with young men. And I'm starting to feel old because I never wanted to know who clavicular was. And
what's up with clavicular? Explain
I really
him to
didn't.
me.
I have no explanation. AB is here. AB, you're clavicular adjacent, I feel like.
What makes him popular? Just like a mini Andrew Tate. Right. I don't think there's anything there. I think he's just like a memeified, because it's interesting when they ask him like topics that he should have an opinion on. He can't answer things intelligently. So he's just like,
he's a moron. Guys, he's a moron. But is he actually popular, or
well,
is
let's
he
just take a step back for those.
Is he just a curiosity?
Look, there are some people who are listening to this podcast who live a pastoral life and have not come into contact with clavicular. So clavicular.
Well, I mean, it was in the New York Times. So
he's a looks maxer.
What's a looks maxer?
AB, you're a looks maxer. How would you describe looks maxing?
He's basically leaning into the nihilistic point is like everything is inward facing. So he talks about doing things to basically make him more attractive and, prop up his ego. So skincare routines, taking certain pills. I don't know. It's just like, it's like
he
drawing
punches himself in the face. Is that, or what does he do?
I think he talks about like breaking his, I don't know. It's just kind of wild. But it's there. I do think it's like a flavor of the month, and his like sticking power is not going to be that strong.
No,
so
he's
doing people.
He strikes me as Hawk 2 at 2.0. By the way, she's apparently on OnlyFans. That was the only place that story could end. So meme coin, OnlyFans. So I don't know why people are upset, Troy. Do tell me. Everything seems great. I'm wearing a smiley face t-shirt, so you can't see it, but.
Well, where do we go from here? Because
let's talk.
You were on a rant, Brian. You were on a rant, and it started
indignation
where it always starts with you, and it's with European butter, and you always go back to the European butter.
I do,
as a sign of decline of America. We can't even make fucking butter.
We have tons of cows. Why does the butter taste terrible here? Like, I think about this all the time when I go through, like, New York is now, and the Mamdani is saying he's going to raise real estate taxes by like 10% if he doesn't get his rich person tax through, which also his rich person tax is going to affect people who can do, I don't want to say they live paycheck to paycheck in New York, but like literally, like, New York is so freaking ridiculously expensive that, people can make really high salaries. And when you're paying $70,000 a year for freaking kindergarten, like, it doesn't go that far. And you look around and you're like, really? I don't get that much here. Like, you spend 3 times, like, per person what is being spent in Florida, and for what? Like, it just doesn't add up. And that's depressing. It's depressing that America is in this period where it seems like the only thing that we do is we financialize. We have a economy that's being propped up by all of this speculative AI funding and these data centers that are not, like, improving people's lives. And then you have terrible infrastructure, terrible transportation, food that's making you sick. Anyone who goes to Europe, your organism's gonna be mostly like cheese and like ribs by the end of the week, and you're gonna feel better, right? Like we gotta improve a lot of stuff. I feel I'm pro-America long term, but there's a lot of work to be done, as you said. But I think it is good to focus on the young people because, that is, like, as you say, like that is the canary in the coal mine, right? And if they're feeling that their life is shittier and is the prospects of it are not good, then that's a bad sign for overall. I don't have the answers for it, unfortunately. I don't know if you do.
No, I think
I wish I did.
So with Mamdani's, not to drift into an area I'm not supposed to talk about, but I think with Mamdani's tax stuff and the California, like the wealth tax that they're trying to push, it does highlight this interesting thing where parts of the middle and like upper middle class there's like this strong conservative base, right? Where they sort of align with the ultra wealthy of like, we want less taxes, less services. But if you think about like in a state like California, and same thing in New York, when you look at the budget, so much of it goes to public education, and most of these upper middle class people don't send their kids to public school. The trade-off starts to change because Mamdani's like, he doesn't have the lever to push through the billionaire taxes. He's going to have, if he wants to do it himself, increase the property taxes. And so you start to see this thing where people in the upper middle class start to kind of pull back from being conservative and try to tax other places because they're not getting any value from any of these services anyway. Like when you hear that the New York City budget is 40% going to
it's twice
schools,
what Tokyo's budget is.
Yeah, but the whole idea of what it means to be conservative starts to change. And you start to say, yeah, we actually want other people to pay their fair share, right? Because like if you are of a certain wealth and you're basically lending against your unearned stock value and really paying less of a tax rate than high income earners. And as a high income earner, you're not even using any of the services that you're having to pay 50+% taxes to. It sort of changes the whole game. So I think the California thing will come up for a vote. I don't think it passes, but it's like the start of more taxing of the wealthy that I think more people will be open to, because that's the only way to pay for this stuff.
Well, if they get more, like Daniel Lurie seems like he's doing a very good job in San Francisco, from everything I hear. And competent leadership will go a long ways across all of these areas: politics, the economics, urban affairs. Like if Mamdani can prove that the government can be efficient and effective and produce outcomes versus spend money, then that's amazing. And I think that there would be a ton of support for that. I don't see that happening necessarily, but maybe. Let's talk about the best and worst when it comes to media. I was thinking this because it's a bit of a difficult time, I feel like, for the media business. I'm going out on a limb here. And I think that there are some hopeful signs out there. And I've just taken to asking people what's working, right? And I went through and I thought for myself, I'm like, what are the things right now that are working in the media business? Because we can talk all the time about what is not working, right? But what is working? A few areas that I see, and I'd like your opinions on these. One is, I think audience first business models are working for elite brands. It's pretty clear the New York Times, the Atlantic, Bloomberg Media, the Wall Street Journal will be fine through all of this compression. Something that I see is that, with the page view declines, they're not matched by revenue declines. So I had a conversation with Adam Singolda yesterday, and he was saying like 30 to 40% search traffic declines are real, but that they're seeing that they're matched by like 10 to 15% revenue drops. And that indicates that a lot of this was not all that valuable. Some are seeing even gains. Like the Boston Globe is seeing its search traffic go up, and its subscriptions from that traffic go up. And any publisher I've talked to has said that the traffic that they get, it's far smaller from ChatGPT and from Gemini, is far higher quality. So I think for models that can be business for models that can be audience first, and it's hard and it's a small number, they're fine. They're doing well. So that's one area. The other one, and this is maybe close to home for you, Troy, I don't know if you'll indulge, but being a front for non-media businesses that have far better economics. Hearst has become a B2B data services business with magazines and newspapers. I mean, it's kind of reminds me of how the New York Times is a gaming company with a newsroom, because its non-news products are growing fastest in its bundle, not the news product. But Hearst has the majority of its profits are now coming from B2B companies like Fitch Ratings and this aviation data service camp. I don't have much familiarity.
This isn't a new
that.
story, Brian. This has been going on for a decade.
I understand that, but I hate that it's not a new story. I think it's worth dwelling on why this is successful, right? Like Outside is trying a version of this with a model where its various media brands feed into the recurring revenue utilities it has, like its trail, like a MapMy route apps for like hiking and running. And look, I think a lot of this is a lot of the media business will end up being fronts for other businesses. That's okay. It's a role.
Yeah, it's not just media. I was reminded at the ski hill today that Warren Calmer's the guy that owns Black Diamond, which is a really wonderful high-end mountaineering and ski brand, also is the primary supplier to ICE for pepper spray and to the U.S. government for weapons. So that's quite a mullet strategy. Everybody wants to have, nice things to say at cocktail parties, dude. Hearst is a remarkable company because it operates like a private entity that had a gusher of cash come in from cable assets, the share in ESPN, and the partnership with Disney on A&E. Both of those, as you know, were very profitable for a long time, and the question was where to reinvest those profits. Investing in data businesses started a long time ago with Motor, which was an offshoot of the automotive publishing, B2B publishing essentially. And there's, they got into healthcare data businesses, into Fitch, which was a terrific business as a ratings company. And Fitch has offset all the declines in cable profits. So, there's still, I think, great, strong feelings for the newspaper business. They just bought the Dallas paper.
Strong feelings.
Well, they're in the newspaper business. It's where it started. They love the business. It's well managed, so it's profitable. Why not keep it? There's no incentive at Hearst to sort of, get rid of assets to streamline the company against some kind of new thesis. You may as well keep them. It's part of the history of the company, and people like the business and they're profitable. I think the magazine business has always been something cherished by the company, something they like a lot. So yeah, everybody does have a version of, the assets that are a little more resilient, that make cash, and the ones that are a joy to own. Although the media ones have not been very joyful of late.
Okay, so if they were publicly traded, they would get pressure just to
Yes,
spin off
definitely.
Right. Yes. So the media assets are toxic. Is that it, AB?
Yeah, they're just not growing. So, they
posted gains. They said posted gains. It was an offhand mention, and they weren't big gains.
I think a better sort of commentary, as Troy mentioned, Hearst has been doing this for a while, like 10 plus years, and basically the media side, 20 years, the magazines, TV, newspapers, they just haven't been growing, and they reallocated all of that capital to more B2B lines of business. I think what's unique about Hearst too is, even though it's a family-owned business, the board is made up of, it's weighted to more outsiders versus insiders. So they're not necessarily focused on growing media. They're allocating capital to places where they think is going to have the highest ROI.
I am also encouraged the fact that people keep building media companies. It hasn't stopped. All this doom and gloom, people are still doing it. I'm gonna butcher Max's last name because that's my calling card. Max Sheehan, who was one of the Puck founding team. He's basically we're now in the part of the cycle where it's the Puck for X. It used to be the BuzzFeed for X, then it was the Morning Brew for X, There's a couple vices for X. There's like a French vice out there, Brute. But now we're having Puck for X, and they're going after the food industry with Caper. It's launching, I believe, this week. Are you involved in that, AB? You probably are. You're not involved. Okay. This will be an interesting play. I mean, it is. There's always. I don't know enough about the food industry to know if it caters that. I always thought like restaurants are a terrible business, but they're going to take that sort of power approach to food as a category. Joanna Stern, who has really done some great work particularly with video at the Wall Street Journal. Before that, I believe she was at Bloomberg. She's setting off on her own on YouTube. She's starting a YouTube channel, Beehive newsletter, whatnot. Those kind of things are working. I think the expert creator lane is still really good. And this is, to me, the Lenny Rachitsky of X. Lenny Rachitsky is for product people. CJ is for CFOs. I've been really enjoying. Do you ever read Rachel Carton, link in bio? Mm-hmm. She does a great job for social media marketers, and social media has become like really important. Obviously, she used to do this at Bon App, so she has that sort of expertise in it. And I think she's building like what Mashable should have been. She's got a newsletter, and if you're in that business, you should be reading like link in bio for sure. So these are good businesses. They're not the same as the previous generation's businesses, but they're good businesses.
And it should all come at no surprise that we live in a media-saturated world, that while much of the spectrum is dominated by, people making media for people in, kind of non-commercial ways, that there are, no-cost platforms that allow you to reach big audiences. And if you can successfully build loyalty around those, and they are adjacent to, anything that has commercial value, that you can trap those dollars as advertising, right? Or, if it makes sense, you can sell your content to people. So I don't see why I think that my apprehension as an investor would be like, I look at these things all the time. And when I see, creator kind of YouTube-based businesses looking for funding, I wonder about the longevity. And I wonder about their ability to stand up a commercial operation that allows them to scale effectively. And so I think they're great craft businesses. I think very few of them end up being, the next generation big thing.
No, but I don't know if there is a next generation big thing. Maybe the next generation is a whole bunch of small things. That's right. My position is there isn't going to be, maybe there'll be a couple, but like trying to build it is probably a fool's errand.
It's just that when your capital in that situation, like owning a percentage of a $5 million or $10 million media business is, to me, a difficult way to make money.
Well, you guys are capital allocators. I mean, you're on the top of a mountain, right? I'm in the trenches, Troy. I'm doing mixers.
I got a note about you this week, Brian.
Oh, no, don't tell me. I don't like negative feedback.
No, it wasn't negative. It was someone wanting you once again to join their Death Star.
Death Star, really? That'd be great. I haven't worked in an office in...
I didn't even share it because I know that you're so religiously independent.
Yes. It's a lifestyle choice. It's an identity.
And that, for me to go pitch you on, someone buying your email list.
You know what?
You're not into it.
List. You're buying more than that. No, it's an identity. It's like native New Yorker. Like it just becomes an all-encompassing identity. I actually did a commute this week.
Can I buy stock in you, Brian?
I mean, there should be like a creator stock exchange.
That's a good idea. Yeah, if I'd like to buy some stock in you, but I want to make sure that I get a percentage of the profits that come out. So we would have to, manage the expense line and the salary line.
Oh, yeah. No, I remember it was like, it's like, oh, we want to put a restriction on how much you make. I'm like, jog on.
I was going to say, so some of these like B2B, either B2B newsletters or B2B adjacent, like CJ, for example, is starting to create tools for his audience who are CFOs. And so with this overlay of like AI vibe coding, I think it's easier because I think CJ might have a couple people working at his newsletter. It's much easier for them to stand up different platforms to monetize that audience. So yes, he makes X from advertising, but he's starting to figure out other ways to cultivate that audience.
He makes like $2 million from advertising. It's pretty good. I mean, for like a one-person operation, he just runs ads. It's great. I mean, I gotta run mixers and webinars and all kinds of things.
But he's starting to make tool and for connecting a CFO to a new platform for managing corporate credit cards or whatever. If it's like a warm lead, that's like super valuable. And so you're starting to see people like him, instead of having to hire a couple engineers and take 6 months, he's turning things on much quicker. So his audience of 50,000 plus people that are all CFO, VPs of accounting type things. What do you think?
I mean, I just want to say it's like we're in this weird in-between period where there is a lot of leverage to be gained from the like vibe coding up this. And that's just because like we don't have a million pieces of software like everywhere. And so, yeah, if there is the distribution leverage that he can create a better, tool that people will use, but I just feel like the market will be flooded with these templates, with these tools. And so the price will inevitably go to near zero.
And he's not charging, he's just providing another layer of information and then connecting advertisers with his audience in a more direct way. I agree that it's going to be hard to make these companies massive and make them actionable from an M&A perspective, but they're figuring out new ways to derive revenue, right? Like basically take that intent and convert it to more direct purchasing behavior.
Got it. One thing that is not a company, but that I will call out as a great media product. Have you seen Jmail? You guys seen this?
Well, I think Jmail is an example of what Blake's saying, because he's saying that suddenly media companies or companies that represent an audience like CJ, like CFOs, can now use technology in ways they couldn't before to create utilities that make their bundles more interesting.
Yeah.
And Jmail is just is like jokey media. It's fun.
I know, but it's like so
what is Jmail?
Jmail it started as basically a Gmail clone for you to interact with the Epstein files. Like it's basically recreates Jeffrey Epstein's Gmail account, JEE vacation or whatever, strange account name. There's a lot of strange stuff about that guy. And you can search through it, and it's a much better sort of interface. It's just an interface layer to the data. But then they've made it into like JWorld. And so they have an entire suite. They have a Facebook, they have a Wikipedia, JTube, which I was going through JTube and unfortunately there was some video where Jeffrey Epstein, I don't know, it was some kind of assistant, I guess, of his who was talking about that they were trying to help like sustainable journalism with a mixer that they were doing. So I didn't like that at all. Again, like I don't want people to see that.
It's mostly black boxes running around Jeffrey's apartment.
Exactly. But I don't know. I looked at it and I said, man, these are the kind of things that publishers should be like spinning up. Like it has to get back to these kind of fun. Like there was a fun period where BuzzFeed was trying different things. Like I feel like that's all just ground to a halt as everyone's just in this endless triage mode. That's why I'm doing mixers, because there needs to be more fun again. Trying new things. Microsites. I don't know. Try.
Well, that would be Alex's line. I'm trying new things. I mean, I think that if you map the digital media industry from early delivery of, banners on pages that was always kind of a fakaked idea because it demanded that consumers pay attention to two things at once. One would argue that the entire kind of display industry was a total failure, except for sort of brief moments of kind of performance success around retargeting that too felt toxic because you would buy something and then it would chase you around on the internet for the next 2 weeks. But like the performance thing is real, meaning, the internet led to this, kind of structure, economic structure where you can buy customers effectively. And if you're really good and you understand, companies that are effective at the kind of modernization of late night television, which is how do you sell products on the internet? There's a vast world out there of people turning attention into real dollars. And I'm just I remain very interested in that because it seems to be an unstoppable trend. There will always be demand for customers. And then what do you do with that? So for example, something I'm very interested in is how do you financialize that business? Meaning, can you underwrite the acquisition of customers, i.e. pay for customers, and then have ways to make your money back over time from by taking a percentage of the LTV of a customer? And so there's great new kind of ideas, and around media, particularly as it pertains to performance marketing. And that stuff makes the world go round.
Performance marketing.
It's in every category, whether it's B2B, B2C, D2C, all of those.
Leads make the world go round.
There's death, taxes, and leads. Just always count on them.
I think advertisers are now conditioned to buy everything on like a ROAS, right, from the platforms. Right. And so that's why if you're trying to go up against Google and Facebook, you have to provide validity that you're delivering people customers and not just eyeballs.
Yeah, for sure.
The only two successful ad platforms at scale on the internet are Google and Meta, and they're all about buying leads. They're all about buying outcomes.
Yeah, the shift to outcomes has happened, and it's not going backwards. So you do not want to be selling impressions. I think.
No, my next business is financing outcomes. I'm going to underwrite outcomes.
Okay, that sounds like remember with Seth Goldstein? He was doing some kind of thing with leads. He linked up with Lou Ranieri, the guy who started like the mortgage securities market, and was trying to do that for attention/leads. This was many years ago.
It sounds too conceptual. How about I just...
It was super conceptual.
Customers?
Seth is a very super conceptual
This is
guy.
like accounts receivable factoring. I mean, this is very, very pragmatic.
It sounds like up AB's alley. AB, I've been bugging you about like what's working, and you came up with an interesting example. It wasn't one that I'd heard of, to be honest with you. In the world of YouTube, which is, the new TV.
Yeah. The synthetic, AI content or technology-driven content has been around for a while, right? So publishers like
oh my God, is this the rebranding that you're
No, I'm just saying I'm saying it's not new because I think sometimes people talk about
it's an AI slop account.
New.
It's an AI slop account.
Yeah, that's but publishers have used like vignette videos to drive additional ad revenue on their sites, right? Because video ads are more valuable than display.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening in like more significant proliferation is AI generated content, both on live streaming and also on YouTube. So the question is like, what do the platforms do? Right now, consumers are not trusting this content at the same level as they do for human generated content. And like the problem is if a consumer doesn't trust the content, then they don't trust the advertisements that are adjacent to it. So right now, I think the platforms are going to say they're going to take action. At some point, the AI generated content is going to get just as good as the normal content. I don't think consumers are going to be able to tell a difference, but it's just this general theme that we're going to see, I think, more and more as the technology improves to increase how easy it is and how cheap it is to make video content, as you're just going to see more and more synthetic video on your feed.
Right. So this is Bandar Apna Dost. It's an Indian YouTube channel. It's racking up billions of views. Colin and Samir feature this. Colin and Samir that's another great business, by the way. Yeah. It's a YouTube about YouTube because it's such a massive, massive economy. It's basically an AI generated monkey. And that was my understanding of watching a little bit of it.
Yeah. I mean, there's having adventures. Yes, they're referencing this India or channel from Pakistan or India.
No, it's Pakistan.
But there's a company for sale right now that's based in North America that's 50% EBITDA margins. That's doing well. They have like human narrators, but most of the content is synthetically generated. They do millions of views every month on YouTube. So there's definitely...
But they create this stuff for like $60, right? Like a video. Like, it's ARB.
Yeah. Yeah,
to me, it's like attention.
And that's the problem with these feeds is like they're not geared towards premium content. They're geared towards keeping you addicted, right? And so I think long term, as much as the platforms are saying we're going to try to get rid of this because we don't want to mess up the opportunity for natural creators, is like long term, I don't think they care. Because as long as it keeps you addicted to the platform and you can trust it at the same level as human generated content, it doesn't matter. They just want you to be on Instagram or YouTube for hours a day. Like that's their goal. I think the point of the
won't that create another lane, this craft lane? Like to me, the craft lane is far more interesting. Maybe it's just because like I don't have the wherewithal.
Let's look at this more broadly. What
this is so uninspiring.
God bless.
Troy wants to financialize leads. AB is talking about this Pakistani a synthetic monkey.
It's just like the guy's never going to create a media brand. It's a short-term content arb. He'll feed off the kind of algorithm arb on YouTube for a while and maybe make some money, and it will go away.
But I think we're going to see more of that. Like I think like the disposability of brands. Like I almost think sometimes that like it doesn't make sense to try to build a long-lasting brand because you are probably not going to do it. So just try to find a seam, try to make it work, and then move on to the next thing. You see this all the time in software. I mean, all these like solo, digital nomad hackers, they create like tons and tons of different apps. That guy who got bought with like OpenClaw from OpenAI bought him. It was like one guy sold like $1 billion basically like company. This was like one of like dozens of projects he did. So why wouldn't content be any different? Just try a bunch of different stuff.
Good point. All right.
All right. Should we do good products? Do we have a good product?
Okay. I do. I have a couple for you guys.
Swiss flavored?
They're not Swiss. The Swiss ones I think I've done before. Roasties are great. Everybody knows.
Yeah, we've gone on roasty.
I was kind of moved by a couple of pieces of real content this week, AB.
Was it Bandar?
No, I have a new favorite show, which is delightful, but I did watch 2 great documentaries on Netflix that are worth pointing out. And one is, have you seen The Queen of Chess? No. It was always thought that like women couldn't beat men in chess. There's this documentary that chronicles the life of this Hungarian grandmaster named Judith Polar. And it's a new documentary. And essentially, her father had 3 girls. He read all the books about kind of the genius mind and decided he wanted to sort of homeschool and educate geniuses in his home. And he decided on chess, and he taught his 3 daughters. They spent 9 hours a day learning chess in Budapest. And
that's such an Eastern European thing to do.
They were all terrific, but Judith was the best. And she quickly, I think the youngest person ever to become a grandmaster, rose to be the greatest female chess player, uncontested in the world, and then had a number of games against Garry Kasparov and really had to modify her style to take him down. And ultimately, I think it was like the 14th game beat him. And it's a really inspiring story. So I love that. I love that a lot. And then there was this other great one called Secret Mall Apartment on Netflix about these, RISD adjacent art students living in Portland, Maine, that secretly built an apartment in a part of a new mall that was part of kind of gentrifying the town in a way that displaced a lot of the great old housing. And they were kind of making a statement. And they snuck in to the mall over a period of 4 years and painstakingly assembled an apartment that they lived in on and off for years and years and years until it was discovered. And it's a great story. But the great show right now, and I didn't think I would like this, but I absolutely love it, is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. Are you watching this?
No.
And I'm no Game of Thrones stan at all, but it's now in its 4th or 5th episode. It's character driven, and it's like a 6-episode adaptation of Martin's Dunk and Egg, and the character, this lovable idiot called Dunk, and his squire Egg, you know, kind of are lovable losers who will ultimately, you know, prevail. And it's set 90 years before Game of Thrones. The characters are amazing, and it's a really great show. It really is terrific. So I recommend it highly.
By the way, on chess, did you know that chess.com is a great business? It's a $100 million plus in revenue business, ton of recurring revenue. There's a lot of money to be made in a lot of different areas. I don't know, AB, are you on chess.com?
There's a lot of these websites like that are basic, like prayer.com, like that provide like very utility services that make a lot of money. Dictionary.com.
Oh yeah, like I had no idea. We had someone from one of the dictionary sites. There's really only two. There's a few. They churn a ton of page views still. They have a really good business. They have a massive, like, word of the day email newsletters. Like, a lot of people sign up for those.
I'm signed up for today's
It's just a word.
Today's devotion. Troy, how do you do your content? Do you get, when you're watching these shows on Netflix, is it because it's on the platform, or do people tell you that they liked it and then you watch it?
Both. I think, like everybody, you know, it's like, yeah, the algorithm is useful, but can narrow you into one lane really quickly. You know, the YouTube algorithm's really good at, you know, quickly surfacing a new interest. I think that the Netflix algorithm often finds documentaries and stuff that I'm interested in, although they come from, you know, friends and family. So yeah, both, everywhere. Although I am experiencing some newsletter fatigue, I have to say. I'm a little newslettered out.
I think overall newsletters have that fatigue factor for sure.
Yeah, like I'm stuck on ours, guys. Like, you know, lately I've noticed that I've been summarizing the main kind of topics that we discuss in the episode. And some of that I just kind of process off the transcript and then edit it, and usually start with a little blurb, something that struck me, like a little essay that sometimes Brian responds to, sometimes he doesn't. And, you know, I don't know what makes a useful companion to the podcast. And I don't always have like a kind of Tina Brown-esque essay in me.
Yeah. Well, why not just, I think just the topics we discussed, I don't know, there's different like purposes for it. I mean, maybe if people have ideas, what do you find like most valuable? But I do think, you know, with this shift to orality, it's hurt engagement on the words. No doubt. I send thousands of words a week. I just noticed, you know, my open rates, of course, Troy, are like well over 55%. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I've noticed just with what people, I hear a lot more about like the podcasts than I do. I think podcasts still have like a resonance that newsletters do not necessarily. I still think the written word is obviously really good, but I think it's a really efficient way, particularly to communicate like business information. But that could be a generational thing. I don't know.
Well, I'm late for my fondue reservation.
Good. Europe is always, you know, they have a much better après-ski. The food is way better, and none of these.
It may be going
nachos.
To shit here, Brian, according to like, you know, the MAGA people, but I just want to spend more time in Europe.
Yeah,
personally. Totally.
I'm with you. I'll be back in Europe in April. Until April.
And God, the Swiss are good at transportation. Oh my God, the trams, the trains, the lifts, all that.
Yeah, they're a little persnickety though as a people. But that comes with it. I mean, you can't be all orderly without like going into being persnickety. So it's fine.
Anyway, I'm going to put on my Canadian t-shirt and go get some fondue. That's it for this episode of People vs. Algorithms, where each week we uncover patterns shaping media, culture, and technology. Big thanks, as always, to our producer, Vanya Arsenov. She always makes us a little clearer and more understandable, and we appreciate her very, very much. If you're enjoying these conversations, we'd love for you to leave us a review. It helps us get the word out and keeps our community growing. Remember, you can find People vs. Algorithms on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and now on YouTube. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
All right, guys.
See you later.
Bye.